You just cut that off right there? All right, cool.
Short and sweet, baby.
What?
Hey, cut what off?
Did you just end the start video
No.
thing? Oh.
No, it played the whole thing.
Weird.
Dude, funny, you probably I watched the whole thing play this time. I tell you every time it cuts off for me, maybe you finally saw what I normally see, which is like it like doesn't play and then all of a sudden it plays and it cuts. And I'm like, what happened? But like you see the whole thing.
That was weird.
Welcome to SeerNova.
I'm on my laptop.
Where technical issues are the norm.
We have 2 guests. Fish has been
And a
on
pumpkin.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We're just so famous over here. We forgot.
Yeah, we have just so many guests. All the guests.
And we have a new one. Frank, walk. Do you walk this way? Okay.
Bet you never heard that one before.
I've heard it all.
What's the first W for?
Wiley.
Is it Wiley Frank Walk? That's the whole name?
Wiley Franklin Walk, yeah.
Nice.
Wiley Walk, man, that is that is a
alliteration.
hell of a moniker, man.
Yeah,
I
the
thought
alliteration
Fish was
great.
bad, dude. That's
Honestly,
You
it
got
kind of
it.
sounds like a Marvel. What's it called?
Loration.
The character. What's it called?
it
The
sounds
alter
like
ego
it
name.
sounds like the
Yeah.
extra mailman for the FF that like fills in when the other guy can't make it. Oh, Wiley Walk, here he goes.
Peter Parker's best friend is Wiley Walk. With Bruce Banner.
Right.
Who comes to the side. Awesome.
So, yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
What's the
So
color wheel behind you, by the way? Because I can't see it. It's too tiny. The color wheel. What is that color wheel?
Oh, this color wheel. This is the color disc by Peter T. Donahue, and it is it's I think version 2.5, but that dude is a genius when it comes to color theory and the visual light spectrum, and I had to get a copy of that.
It was very cool. Yeah, I was just curious because I have a fun color wheel that's like all of the different emotions associated with it.
Yeah, sure.
I've only found one that was like really thorough, like from white to full saturated color, and like all of the different emotions from in to out across. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe like 30 different colors from the center. So it looks kind of like that, but like sliced up with the emotion stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to look for something like that. I also, in front of me, I actually have 2 other color theory posters as well.
What are you talking about? There's no in front of you. You're in a box. We see you.
Right.
This is how the world exists, where it's trapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, being a colorist, I always like to keep those reminders around, just because there's so many different things to consider when you're putting together those types of puzzles. That
Man.
it's good to be able to look around and go, oh yeah, this color palette's a thing.
It's so funny. Right now,
I need to do that.
Right now, we've got past guests freaking out, going, I just see a circle, because we had 2 colorblind artists in like our last couple of podcasts. They're like, what is that behind you? It's just a ball. But no, that's it's super interesting, because one of the things that we talked about with who was the one who did the coloring? He was colorblind, but he actually did the coloring. Is the first. He was standing up during the call. Scott
Harris King.
Yeah. That sounds familiar. But basically, he talked about how I think he has someone else that might color it, but then he looks at it and he's colorblind, and if it doesn't stand out, he'll increase saturations and brightness. I'm like, that's actually brilliant, because
value checking.
Yeah, if you look at all the fans of comics, I would imagine males probably are higher on that spectrum. And when it comes to color blindness, it's something like 1 in 12 men are colorblind. Like, it's way higher than you think. And if that's the case, you could be missing out on like audiences. You could be missing out on audiences because the color isn't like popping to them the way it does to other people. And I'm like, man, that's actually super interesting. Like, if that would actually help with sales, help with keeping readers engaged, all that stuff. It's super cool.
Yeah, this cover's gonna sell out like crazy, though.
That pops no matter what you're looking at.
Yeah,
Yeah, fish.
the contrast is strong on that.
Yeah, fish to the
There
end.
is no try. There's only do.
Yeah, so Night Watch is like in the process of going to the printing stage. That's the only thing that I'm waiting on is to print that, and yeah.
That's I got one more page left. I had to create the. I have the credits page created. I have one of the filler pages created, which was really fun, by the way. Do I have that open? Let's say it. Just because Fish might like this. It was a what's it called? Like a bio background behind the scenes of one of our characters. I had to create an entire world map just to cut only 1/4 of it out of it because I'm that guy. Literally, Greg and I spent like 3 days cutting or trying to create a world map that looked like a real world map. And then here it is right here.
I created a shitty version of it like a couple years ago.
Here we go. So yeah, this will be one of the filler pages once it loads. There it goes. Yeah. So I created an entire world map. You can even say it says that map of Venetia. And on this world map, I basically took his world map. I created country lines so that it's separated. I added typography. I used AI. Sorry guys, but I just wanted it to make it look like a Google Maps real quick. So I did that. And then I added all the extra text, and then we came up with background story for the guy. Came up with like kind of like the stuff you put on a card, the trading card, and put that here. And it's so funny because this guy is like just a bad guy, and now we're like, you know what, we're gonna make him like really really important now, and have a whole thing dedicated to him at the end of the book. But yeah, so that was one of the pages that the what's it called, the filler pages in the back to get the 28 pages.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I was sending my book off to the editor for the final round of edits when I realized somehow when I set up the initial pages for Alice 2 that I was 2 pages short, and the 3D preview in Clip Studio didn't make a point of that, so I could flip through it like normal, and it just didn't matter if it wouldn't actually physically work, and it's my mistake. So all of a sudden I got 2 pages to fill, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I really wanted to put this establishing shot of this one realm in this dimension there. And I was like, I got a whole page. So I made this big, crazy 3-point perspective shot of this chasm city. It's awesome. It's a shanty town built inside of a canyon that's like never ending. That was crazy perspective because it just keeps going up and turning every which way you go, and then I got to fill it full of people and bridges and all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's what you showed me.
Yeah.
It sounds like hell to color. That's what that sounds like.
Oh yeah, it was. I took like 3 tries at it, and then I finally was like, "Screw it, monochrome. We're gonna do that." But I'm really trying to color code all these different realms in these dimensions, so it's kind of easy to tell thematically where you are by like the color scheme. So I had the rest of the pages there basically green toned anyway, so I just went ahead and went with that. Yeah.
That is so funny that overlapped again. I forget. So Greg, who was the second person we talked to that was colorblind? I'm so glad Greg remembers these because my brain no work on this.
Greg's keeping all the notes.
I don't know.
The second guy we spoke with, one of his favorite films of all time was The Matrix, and I was the first apparently to inform him that when in The Matrix everything is green and in the real world everything is blue. And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, because like I was a big fan too. That's why I know that. And I'm like, that's crazy that never crossed his palate like of stuff about the movie, because that's a really big creative direction of the movie was to do that. And it's funny because I just shared in the private chat a link. The filler pages, ironically, we had an issue here.
Gerald Von Starter.
Yeah, there you go. But what's it called? I put an article we put on our website for filler pages because that happened to us where we needed filler pages and we didn't know what to do. So I put together like a whole article on like different types of filler pages you could have, so that it's not just literally filling pages. And so I put a list of those together, and one of them was character bios or backstory. So we're like, oh, we'll do that one this time. But we've done it with it was the Seer Chronicles. We created an entire newspaper company and a newspaper for our comic so that we can fill the front couple pages, if need be, with the news of the previous comic. So it's kind of a cool way to like, ensure that there's filler page for those comics. And then the other one was
That's a neat way to catch up on what happened in the series too. And you can just use pictures from the book as like you know photos. That's
one of them
really
was like
clever.
Yeah,
somebody needs to steal that idea and use it himself.
Then we had other like stories because it's a newspaper still, so we had other stories that are in the background that you don't see in the comic, but that's happening in the world. So there was a thing that actually happens in Ink 2 that's in the newspaper. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I like that idea because there's always other stuff going on in the world that I want to talk about, but like I can't spare the pages to actually show it. And you know,
that's exactly how we got over that. Was we created a newspaper, and then the other thing we did too was so because this took, I spent way too much time doing this. I basically created personas of writers so that even if like let's say it's a crime, like we have 3 journalists who write on crime and they have different opinions on how they should write about it, right? So and then like one does like major crimes, one does
way down the rabbit hole here.
We literally we might as well have built the structure for a newspaper company in motion. We have like the whole like here's the employees and what they think and their life story. But because of that, it kind of helps with the writing. Like I know how they might think about a story, and then same thing. Yeah, like there's something in our universe we want to talk about. We couldn't fit it in 24 pages. It might be important in the future. It's not necessary to know, but for a real fan, it's kind of cool to know. And so that was part of how we came up with that. And then even little Easter eggs, like on one of our newspaper articles, we put ads just to fill in the space. And one of the ads is for a burger joint that's a fake burger joint in our universe called Ground Zero Burger Joint, and it's famous for the nuclear burger. And because of that, we put a coupon code for nuclear for a discount code that actually works on our website if you want to buy the merchandise from that. Like we made a T-shirt with like the Ground Zero Burger Joint. So like we like way over the top stuff, but
that's awesome though.
Yeah, I love world building. So fun.
So clever. So clever.
I'm just like you. Like I was reading the script for this issue, and there came a point where like Rabbit pulls out this map and has it stuck on the wall that's like a map of Wonderland. And I was like, well, crap, I'm going to have to draw that at least 3 or 4 times in the background. So I was like, I might as well just make a map. So I spent like 2 days making a map of this interdimensional rift of Wonderland. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you make a rift? How do you make a map of an interdimensional space? And like, how do you show that? And because it's not like linear. So there's like all of these round realms. And then I had to figure all this out and where do the pathways and the roads go. And some places don't even have land, so instead that's got like the trade winds marked, and it got really complicated. And then like one of these roads goes this way, which looks like it would go into this next realm, but it actually goes over here. And like it was so much fun. I got way lost.
Do you have a picture of the map?
I probably can get one up. I'm on a different computer, but yeah, I can pull one up here in a second. I ended up putting so much work into the freaking thing that we made it a poster in the campaign.
Yeah, because I definitely would love to see that. Because one of the things that I was actually going to pull up too was so what we so aside from the newspaper, the other thing we did was in our book Ink, we created a language that I created an entire font around just to type one message on a wall, and then we created
that took a while.
That took forever, and it was so funny because I talked to another creator who offered to do it. The price was a little high, and I'm like, I'll just figure out how to do it myself. And when I was all done, I messaged him and I go, I apologize because had I known by the time I finished, I would have just paid you to do it. But yeah, it was one of those things where after I did that, I then needed to make a transcription of it. So it would actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I needed it so that someone could look at it later and read it. Because if not, then it doesn't make any sense. It's just on the wall, and people are going to guess, and it's just scribes. That's super cool.
Yeah, There's the map.
Oh, that is wild.
And it's got all kinds of places that like we've already seen and lots of places that we haven't seen yet. A lot of this one takes place in Neverland, which is like this area of poison skies. So there is no land to land on. There's no place to set down. So it's called Neverland. And then there's another realm here where the Nexus Order is the time worshipping cult that's hunting down Alice and Rabbit. And then there's places we're going to see later and places that are going to be really important later. And like the Emerald Cities over here, which is like carved out of a giant emerald mine. It's like one big solid hunk of emerald that they've carved the city out of and run by like fantasy dwarves. And then way down here in this little place is Chasm City, which is just like this endless canyon where these two realms have broken apart and there's this gap in between it, and people have built a shanty town in there. And so it was a really cool idea, and I really wanted to fit an establishing shot in there, but there was just too much good stuff in the story to have to take out to put an establishing shot. And then all of a sudden I realized I had 2 extra pages. So I was like, okay, here we go. And then the other one became a wanted poster of Rabbit that's shown on the cover. But this time I got to put in all the extra little details and the fine print and stuff. And then I hid all kinds of secret codes and stuff in there. And there's stuff that's easy to find. There's stuff that's really well hidden, but if you find it, it'll take you to like a secret YouTube video that you can only get through this link that's got like a secret message from Rabbit. And all kinds of cool little codes and stuff hidden in it, little secret messages and stuff. It was a lot of fun. It was really fun pushing pushing how far I could do with a QR code, because I realized like it uses those 3 boxes to get it square when it's not square with the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized I could put it in perspective and it worked. And so then I can put it on a wall in perspective. And then I was like, well, if I mess with the color, maybe I can get it not too far off the wall color and not make it like, here's a QR code. But like it's there. And, you know, if you put your camera on it and give it a second, it'll catch it. And that was a lot of fun. I'm going to be doing that a lot more.
Yeah. The only thing you can't do is you can perspect it. You just can't bend it, which I only found out after putting on posters and hanging around town and going, oh, it doesn't work when it's on a pole.
Yeah, that makes sense. It needs to be on a flat plane. Yeah.
I see why you made that a poster, though, man. That's fantastic looking. That
really is. It was so much fun and so much work to put in. And like I started working on a legend for it as well to explain like some of these rings around here show where like magic can't pass, so they can't like use the sword to just cut through dimensions and end up there. They have to take like one of the paths that actually lead into that place, because you can't just hop in there like they can everywhere else, because they got this sword that cuts through reality and they can go wherever they want. It's a whole thing.
That's very cool. Yeah. The thing that we ended up doing was after we created that. So where is this thing? Screen share. Where is it? Here. Yeah. What we ended up doing was let me put it back up here. Up. Damn it. I downloaded the print file stupidly, so it's very large. So this right here was the text that we wanted to write. But the thing was, like, we wanted it to actually say something, and we didn't want to have to write out what it said. So we did this, and in the print-only version, so if you get the digital one, you can't read it. But in the print-only version, we created a poem that contains every letter that's necessary to translate it. And then we created a transcriber, and it shows just the word. So we're missing some of the letters, right? But it has all the ones from there. But I still created all the letters. I created an entire font. And I'm like, well, since I did that and there's a flashback scene, why don't we just take why don't I write an entire ancient text and then lay it onto the artist's book that he created? So this right here, it was added after the artist created this. Like the artist created the book, but they were blank pages. And then I wrote out an actual story with the font and then laid it onto here and bent it onto the pages and all that fun stuff. And even though, like, see this, like how it's so perspective, you can't actually read it. It's still a whole story. I still wanted
actually a prophecy too. So,
and then even here, same thing. And yeah, like Greg said, this is actually a prophecy. So if you do transcribe this, you will know what will happen in the future of these comics.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we
that's really cool.
Yeah, we do way too much when we do world building, but it's so fun because it's like by doing that amount of stuff, by the time we get to like these later comics, these later issues, somebody who goes in here looking for this stuff is going to be like, holy crap, there's this entire freaking world behind all of this, where we can now take that font and maybe I put it on the side of a container in another issue and you have no idea, but then you have to go back to the second issue to get the transcriber. And it's like just fun little stuff like that.
Definitely a labor of love too, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Frank, it's your turn. You got to show something cool.
Show you something cool? Oh, sure.
Show the color wheel.
Show you the color wheel. I'll just pull
this is purple. Don't know if you've seen it before. It's pretty cool. It's relatively new. Okay, now hold on to your hat.
But yeah, Frank, you have Hellstones. So
I do. Yeah, absolutely. My first first comic. Yeah.
So how'd you go about like creating that and your little journey into making that?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been a creative person. I've always been artistic, always liked creative writing, drawing, all that stuff. And back in like 2015, I was working a pretty boring desk job and needed something to kind of keep my mind active. So I just started just creative writing. No real aim or direction or anything. And then I was like, well, what kind of character would I want in this, little exercise? And I was like, well, I know, let's do a strong female lead, someone who's grounded, no nonsense, and very real. And the main character, Sam, came out of that. Once I had her, I started thinking about the world around her. And I was kind of just pulling from like just kind of current event kind of stuff, with like organized religion and mega corporations and all these things that are just frustrating to me anyhow. and eventually I was like, well, okay, I'm starting to kind of build something here. What would be like a cool thing? What's the conflict here? And that's when I started coming up with the Hellstones themselves. And I wanted it to be something I'd never heard before. I wanted the origin of the Hellstones to be something unique. So I came up with the fall of Lucifer, and tying that in. And the Hellstones are fossilized remnants of Lucifer's severed wings that were cast out of heaven, fell through space and time, decayed, fossilized, and landed on Earth. And people that find those stones are then imbued with, the magic of Satan. But it became the whole foundation for everything. That was 10 years ago, and I only did a little one-page story. That was it, and then I just kept finding myself coming back to it over time, and just slowly adding to it, and then. And in 2019 is when I really decided that I wanted to be a colorist and started getting into the comic book space and just started gaining all this back end knowledge of the comic book creation process and everything. Forgot about Hellstones altogether because I was focused on other stuff. And then the end of last year, I was like, oh, I know what I can do with this. I've now accumulated all of this knowledge. I should just make this a comic. And then I sat down and I just wrote the entire story over probably about a 2-month span. I mean, I just sat down and just wrote it all out. And then of course I had to figure out, because I'm not a writer per se. I've always liked creative writing and stuff, but I was like, how do I make this all make sense? Because at first it was just a bunch of word vomit, hundreds of pages of word vomit. Then you got to put structure to it, and what's the storyboarding look like? How do you break a story down into panels and books and volumes and all of that craziness? But it's been wild, man. It's been a lot of fun though. It's been really great for me just to be able to just be the only person accountable, really, and going, I get to tell my story the way I want to tell it. No one's going to come at me and tell me, oh, I need this edited after fact. I need this changed. I disagree with what you're doing here. So the freedom of that has been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This is in a long-winded way. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you have like almost the same creative journey that I had when I first started. Like SeerNova happened because I've said this a million times. This is the part where people can just not listen to our podcast right now. So in 2014, I just started writing one night, and when I say it like that, Dylan's like, "Don't say it like that." But so I just started writing one night when I was bored, and then it turned into a 1,200 page story, and then I broke it apart into we have ink and all that other stuff now. And then I found him on Craigslist, and then now we're here. So yeah, but he was just on there
for the win. Yeah, it was funny because I got into marketing while working as an engineer, so I'm doing side projects in marketing, and I'm looking for just work randomly. So Craigslist was just one of those places, and I saw a post on graphic designer, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so I open it up, and then it's like, oh, I'm looking for someone to help me create a comic book, and I'm like, I think you're looking for an illustrator, not a designer, but if you need a logo, I could do that. And basically that's how we got connected, chatted for a year, became friends, and eventually we started the company. It was, it's kind of funny. Just serendipitous.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild sometimes how pieces fall together like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's just like, wow, your story is so awesome. It's going to be better than Spider-Man. I was like, I know, right? So
I need a piece of that, man.
I'll join on for 5% of the toy rights.
Yeah, the toy rights. Yeah, I was like, hey, listen, you can own 100% of the company. I just want the toy rights. That's all.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Oh,
Fish, now you got to tell your story.
Well, way long time ago.
Back in my day.
Way back in the country, back in the 1900s. Let me tell you. Man, same thing. I've always been creative. My mind's always run too fast. Had too many ideas going on in my head. I honestly attribute a big part of why I'm so fast and why I'm so productive and come up with so many ideas is because my brain's not wired right and my nervous system's all jacked up. And, I mean, yeah, sure, I tick a lot and I yell out random crap, and sometimes I can't walk without a cane or a walker, but by God, I'm fast and I knock out a lot of books. This is the 115th book I've published or worked on
This year.
well, not this year, but in the last 6 years. So that's pretty good. I illustrated 21 books last year, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But man,
that's more comics than we probably read.
The people that have bought my comics have more comics than they've read. I guarantee you most people haven't read most of it. But anyway, the same thing. I had an idea. My first, when I was a kid, I had all kinds of ideas, but they were all knockoffs. I had a big brawler dude who was just the Hulk in a New York Yankees outfit for some reason and had a baseball bat. But I mean, it was the Hulk. And I had an Iceman that was made of diamonds, and and I was ripping stuff off because I was a kid, and that's the best I could do at the time. But the first original idea that I had that was all mine, that was really started fleshing itself out into a whole world. I was working at a gas station third shift, and I was sketching on the back of a receipt, just blowing time. And I sketched this like pod that had landed on this snowy planet, and then I sketched this like cyborg bounty hunter that was marching through the snow, and that got my imagination going. And I was like, who is this guy hunting? Who has he traveled this far to this like barren, snowy planet? I'm thinking like Pluto or something. Like, who would travel that far? What are you after? Like, who's he chasing? And then I started thinking over the next few days about this bounty hunter that just wouldn't stop. And it doesn't matter how far you run, or if you traveled through time, or if you went to another dimension, he'd be there waiting on you, and he was going to catch up with you no matter what. And anytime you stop to sleep or rest or take a drink, you know he's catching up because he never stops coming. And then I got to thinking, like, who is the person that's on the run from him? How far are they going to go? What does it cost them to be here? And it ended up splitting into several different characters, and like this bounty hunter that would never quit ended up becoming a character that in the first issue of Alice is the Scarecrow, and he's this like cyborg dude that you can blow him apart and he'll piece himself back together. But he's one of the only characters that can actually go as far as Alice and Rabbit can with this sword that cuts through reality. Like, they can travel dimensions because of the sword, but I'll be dang, Scarecrow's still there and still hunting them. And so it led to a bunch of different ideas. The guy that was always on the run ended up becoming Rabbit. And for a long time, it was just this power fantasy about what if you were this barbarian with a sword that lets you cut through reality and you could go anywhere and do anything and there was no rules. But the older I got, and the more life I experienced, the richer the story became, and the more complex it became and more interesting. And then, like, I adopted kids, so he adopted a kid. I was more successful than he was. He didn't have a very it didn't work out very well for him. But so and the daughter that he ends up adopting, trying to save her life, he basically, like, he tries when he's too young and he's not old enough to be a very good dad yet. And so it's more like pick you up on the weekends and have a good time, but he's not there when you really need him. And so she kind of grows up to hate him eventually and ended up becoming a big villain, and she's trying to kill him. And the story got more and more interesting. And it's the reason I got into doing indie comics. It's what I wanted to tell. It's the story I've always wanted to tell. And it's just cowardice that I didn't start with that book 6 years ago. I was too afraid to start with my baby and have it die on the vine because I didn't have any fans or anybody paying attention. And I didn't want to do a book for 6 people and nobody ever else gets to read it and it didn't go anywhere. That would have killed me. So I started with other books, and the 115 books I've done up until now have been, making way to start working on this project. And so now I'm actually into the second issue, and it should be done at the printers in the morning. I'm super excited. This is going to be one of my quickest Kickstarter fulfillments of all time. Um, and the story changed a lot. Like last year, I was talking with somebody. We were just kicking out story ideas and, like, where to get your ideas from. And somebody was just sitting there in amazement that we had all these ideas. And I was like, you could do anything. Like, you could just take any story and put it in a different setting, put it in a sci-fi setting or a fantasy setting, or make the main character gender swapped or whatever, and see what happens with it. If it's Cinderella in outer space, but it's a guy instead of a girl, like, what happens then? And then you got the basis for a really cool story. And I spit out this idea of, what if Alice was a wandering Ronin warrior in an interdimensional rift of Wonderland, and all the creatures from Wonderland are aliens from other dimensions, because I've been working on this time travel interdimensional story for 30 years at this point. So I like that kind of stuff. I just tossed that out there, and it burrowed into my freaking brain and I couldn't get rid of it. And every project I'm working on, I'm seeing these images of her, and her outfit becomes really clear, and she needs this other automaton character that I've been working on for years in the background on another idea, suddenly fits really well as her sidekick. And I was like, oh, if it's interdimensional and public domain, he could be the Tin Man. And I was trying to decide which story I was going to work on next. Those dogs are killing me. And I couldn't decide if I was going to do this story about the barbarian or if I was going to do the story about Alice. And then I realized if I take his daughter that I love, if I cut her out of the story and I put Alice in her place and I turn the story and tell it from her perspective, it suddenly got way more interesting. And I get to jump to all the good juicy parts. I get to put a sexy chick on the cover, which doesn't hurt. And I get to have a powerful female character as the lead. She's kind of a bad guy, which I've always wanted to tell a story from the bad guy's perspective. And oh, I love it. It has everything I wanted to do. And I get to have all the fun with the public domain characters. And I get to use all of my ideas, which it's 90% my ideas. But all of a sudden, characters that I've been working on for a long time fit real well into these archetypes. Like this guy with white hair that's always been on the run and jumps through these holes and disappears can become the White Rabbit. And that name fits really well for him. And and this ancient automaton can be the Tin Man, and this guy that you can blow apart and he'll put himself back together can be the Scarecrow, and it all suddenly fit and it worked, and it's been so exciting to get to work on.
No, that's super cool, and I love the idea. Like you said, a couple things in there when it comes to getting creative. One of the quotes I love is I've probably said this on a bunch of different podcasts, but there's two quotes I love together. One is good artist copy, great artist steal. That's Pablo Picasso, and obviously his work is very unique. But what he really means, if there's another quote, it's by somebody. For whatever reason, I have Kanye's name in my head. I'm not sure if it's him or not, but some artist that said, if you take from one artist, you're a plagiarist. If you take from 100, you're a genius. And that's really more around what Pablo Picasso's talking about. It's like you're taking, like, think about this. You're saying like the guy who's not stopping, who's not relenting, that's Jason. But now he's a bounty hunter. Like it's every story's been told in some way, but now it's like, how can you tell it in a different, every like basis of a story has been told in some way. Now it's how can you put your skin on top of it? How can you alter the purpose, telling it from the bad guy's perspective? And when you do stuff like, let's say, you gender swap, and now you're thinking to yourself, okay, but now they would do something different because they are different. So like you can come up with like fantastical ideas, even when you start from an original or a non-original idea, like somebody else's idea, you can come up with a totally unique thing by just asking different questions. And there's an entrepreneur, Tim Ferriss, who he has this list of like questions to ask yourself to basically get you to think basically more creatively, more entrepreneurially. And one of those questions is like, what if I did the opposite? And it's like that very simple question can make an entire cool story appear. And I think that's an awesome way to like, like you had one idea and you're like, but then what if I did this? And then take that idea, but then what if it was this? And just keep going on and on. And I feel like that's how all new ideas are sparked, is a seedling from somebody else's and a seedling from someone else's. And kind of like how we crossbreed trees. You're like, well, these two might be good together, so let me merge them together. And now the fruit that comes off is even better. And you're like, but it's not even the same. And it's like, yeah, I love that. It's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're all products of our environment and our own experiences in life. So even if you don't intend to, you're pulling from all of that and putting it into whatever you're doing. So it just makes sense.
Oh yeah, there's going to be hints of the things that inspired us and made us love this kind of stuff seeping in from all kinds of places. And like I built this spaceship. I've got this, knocked my cane over. I've got this giant ship that needed to be in the book, and I had to draw this freaking thing from a bunch of different angles, and I finally just gave up and decided to build a model of it. And so I got a bunch of junk and a bunch of scraps I'd been saving for a while, and I just scratch built this model of the ship. It's too far away for me to grab it, but I built it, and it's really cool, and I love it. And everybody I showed it to was like, "Oh, that's Slave One," and it ticks me off because they're not wrong. Like the turrets on the side and the shape and the way it sits upright definitely is reminiscent of that. the part that makes me really mad is that's the only thing I did not steal from to design this thing as I was working on it. Man, I stole from Jabba's freaking sled palace in the thing. I stole from all kinds of other ideas of things that I liked and things that I thought were cool off of different ships and battleships and all kinds of things. And I piece it all together, and it ends up having the same basic outline as Slave One. And that's the only thing people can see. And I'm like, wait, you're not wrong, but that's not what I stole from.
Do you know what's interesting though? My brother's like this too, because my brother makes music, and every once in a while I'm like, oh, that sounds like this, or it sounds like it could be in this. And he used to hate that. And I'm telling him, I'm like, you don't understand, like every good piece of art, no matter the medium, must overlap familiarity with novelty, or it will never become recognized. There's and one of the easiest ways to prove this is the smartphone that we live and breathe by now was invented 10 years before it ever sold, but nobody purchased it. And it's like, it's the same way. If you think tech isn't the same as art in adaptability, like you're way off the mark. So it's like your stuff should make me feel like I recognize it, but it's new. So I get that familiarity, that warmth, and that like, ooh, dopamine. This is a cool new thing without feeling unsafe.
Yeah.
Like it's that's kind of like what we're searching for when we create. And that's why that whole stealing from different artists, like the whole idea is, you pick 10 of your favorite artists, but you're like, I like this one thing from this guy and this other thing from this guy. And now I merge them together and it's something different. Like once you bake it, that cake is not the ingredients you put together. It's a new thing. So, it's still, the fact that you can be like, oh, I kind of taste the vanilla, I kind of taste the cinnamon. It's like, yes, that's the point. So yeah. I do get that feeling sometimes too, where you're like, oh, I don't want you to think like that, but it's like, no, actually,
it used to make me so mad when somebody would I'd come up with a really cool idea for a character out of nowhere in my mind, and then they'd be like, oh, well, that's basically the Punisher and whoever, and I'm like, but it's not, but people need to be able to categorize things because that's the way people work.
Yeah.
And see, like you said, if they can equate it to something familiar, they can get into it quicker and they can dig it quicker if they get what the vibe is.
Yeah, that's the whole point of comps. It's like, hey, this is like Star Fox meets Mandalorian meets, what's the other one, Greg? I found the third one for the mittens.
It's really weird because I was literally about to talk about mittens. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Thank you. Yeah. And the whole idea is that not only does it make it easier for them to understand it, it also, like you just said, it's faster for them to get into it. Because if they're like, oh, well, I like the Mandalorian. So if this is like that, of all the things I saw today enter my space, this thing already matches something I already like. So I don't need to waste my time with this stuff that I can't put a label on. This one I can. It's like, well, then I don't need this stuff. I want that thing. And like
that's the thing. I had a lot of trouble with my book Green Zone because the concept is so different and it's not like anything else just laid out. Like, it's not the mutants from the X-Men. It's not this, it's not that. Like if I had a brooding superhero on the corner of a building and it's raining and he's griping about, the scum taking over the city, you're like, okay, this is basically Batman. I know where we are. Let's go. And you could get invested in the character like that. But when it's an 8-foot tall lizard living in the ghetto and you're trying to figure out, like, I had to spend so much time just explaining how the world worked that, I couldn't just like jump into action right away. And it made it a little bit tougher, and it's a tougher sell at shows trying to explain it to people instead of just being able to say Alice is a badass bounty hunter and everybody's like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just the name, like the word bounty hunter immediately triggers a bunch of thoughts. By the way, I'll say one thing that because I've talked about on other podcasts the AI stuff that people freak out about comics. This is the one time that AI can be your friend in comics without touching your art. You can literally just tell it your story and say, what is this like? And then you get the marketing material like, oh, this is like that. Cool. I didn't think about that, but that makes perfect sense. And now I can market this to the right fan base. But yeah, I always bring that up to people because they get like scared of it. And it's like, don't use it to create then. Use it for all the other stuff you need, which is like, yeah, how do I explain my comic to someone who's never heard about my story? And comps and log lines are like two of the big things that you got to get. And it's like this, even Greg knows when we're at conventions, the faster you can get them to go, oh, like they get what you're selling. It's so much easier to make the
all they see is a cat on the cover and they want it, but yeah.
Real, if they associate with the cat, if they associate with bounty hunter, it doesn't matter. Like all comps, log lines, basic like one-liners like bounty hunter in space, bounty hunter in Fantasyland. Like it doesn't matter like what's the thing that you pitch. It's like just having this like Rolodex of things that you can say. It's like this. No, you don't get that. What about like this? Oh, that one hit you? Perfect. Like it's just knowing what you can riff off of. So when you're communicating with a potential fan, you can turn them into an interested, prospect who's like, yeah, I'd like to invest my time. We had a person who came to Nashville Comic-Con 2 weeks ago, and there's two people that came up to our table. One of them bought our comics. The second day, they made their friend come buy the same comic. They're like, I read that last night and that was incredible, right? So we ended up chatting with them for most of that second day because I wanted to hear their thoughts. I found out this person was a huge Batman fan and a huge fan of the Marvel and DC stuff, and they liked our stuff. I'm like, that's interesting. Let me figure out everything that you thought was cool about our comic so I can, catalog that for other people. So I definitely, I love that stuff.
Oh yeah, and that's what I love about cons is you get so many opportunities to pitch the book that you can try tweaks and see what works and what hits and hone it down. Like I've learned, for me particularly, because surprise, surprise, I talk a lot. I've had to learn to like hone it down to a razor's edge as short as I can get it, because I don't want to waste 15 minutes on somebody that's not a sale. I want to get to the no as quick as possible and go on to the next person.
By the way, that's super important. I do that in marketing. Disqualify faster than you qualify, because it's so much easier to know someone's not going to like something. So like, you've got so many books, you can do this as well. We've got enough books in different genres that's like the first thing I do, unless they're wearing a cat costume, like Greg said, which is pretty easy. Like, hey, there's Mittens. But it's always like, hey, interested in comics at all? Like just even that question alone, if they're like, no, like you could probably still convince somebody, but it's like,
oh, I got jokes for that. I'm like, yeah. You do know where you are, right? Are you here under your own free will? Blink if you're not safe.
You're right. I was gonna say, and honestly, some of them could literally just not want to sale, but like they don't want to be convinced. But I can't tell you how many times Greg has seen me do this. I take somebody who's like uninterested, and then they buy all our books, right? Like it's so you can still persuade them, but it's like understanding what needs to be said next. And so like I very often ask, like, hey, do you like horror or sci-fi or superheroes, maybe mystery or crime? Like I'm trying to like narrow down what I should even bother wasting your time about before I spend the next 2 minutes, let alone maybe 20 minutes trying to make a pitch. And so it's definitely a big deal. And Frank, because this is your first comic too, like getting together at a convention later, it's like, it's a big deal being able to go and figure that out, because we can now refine our Kickstarters as well, knowing that information.
Absolutely.
So even help online as well.
100%.
Yeah. Kickstarter. So this isn't really like a big like Kickstarter podcast anymore. It used to be just like people used to share their Kickstarter and they're like, this is the Kickstarter, this is the rewards. And like, that's boring me. So I've seen this a million times. So when does your Kickstarter launch though, Frank?
Yeah, my campaign goes live next week on the 25th. And that's going to run all the way to the end of July. I'm pretty stoked about that. Hopefully it all goes well. That's what we all hope for, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And have you like used some of Kickstarter's like new features? Like they have like a pledge manager now, which is kind of
no. I did look at some of the features and stuff like that, as far as like different pledge managers and how all those different things tie in. But I just wanted to keep it clean. I wanted to keep it simple, straightforward. The book's already done. All I got to do was run it to print. So I just wanted to make the turnaround time as quick as possible. Didn't want to have to wait for a bunch of back end stuff.
Yeah, that's
Late pledges are a good thing though. Like I've really enjoyed getting late pledges on my books. It may not be a lot sometimes, but I only got one this time, but I got like 13 or 16 last time.
Just don't tell anyone you turned it on, because they're all like, "I'll get you later." It's like, no, I need to hit the goal first, then I can get the late ones.
Yeah.
that was a late pledge for fish.
Oh, also, one other thing to consider too when you're running your Kickstarter, and this is just true for anybody promoting their comic, you're selling something no one's ever heard of. You can basically share the entire story, and you're not going to ruin anything because they have no reference to the story. And the biggest realization I had on this was all of the MCU trailers spoil the movie if you're a comic book fan and know the story.
Oh,
if
sure.
not, all they're doing is showing the coolest stuff from the movie so that you want to see it. So I used to intentionally avoid the trailers, and I'd actually watch them later because sometimes they put Easter eggs in for the fans. But what's it called? When you tell someone all of that stuff, they're not gonna we over index how much we think someone's gonna remember it, but really they're not. They've never heard of it before. There's no reference point to associate it with and remember that long term. So in some of our Kickstarters now, we share like 70% of our comic in there.
I toned it down because fish is
but for real though, I just say that because
you can show a lot and get people interested, and you're not going to spoil much of anything because, like he said, they're not going to remember from the time they pledged to the time they get the book. They're not going to remember the details of what they read. And I have been too precious about that too many times. And there's too many pages I can't show because it'll give away too many secrets. There's only 4 other people as invested in the story as I am out there. There's only a handful of people. The other people are just like, yeah, this looks like fun. And so I need to remember that.
Sometimes the secrets themselves you think is a secret, but when somebody looks at it with a blank slate, they have no idea they're looking at a secret.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I think that's the other important thing too, is you should ask somebody else that has no idea about your story. Does this spoil anything if you look at it? Because it probably doesn't. We think it does, but it probably I have no idea what that actually means without the rest of the context and without reading it page by page and going, oh, that's what that is.
I've always really enjoyed having friends that don't read comics and ask them to read my stuff or look at pages when they were done. Does this make sense? What do you think's happening on this page with no lettering? And if it makes sense to them what's happening, I did a good job on my page. If they can read the book and enjoy it, then I know I did a good job at telling a story that people are going to enjoy, and not something that only people that are already in the club and already get it and know what these certain little things mean already. It just works. It's always been a good barometer for me. The problem is I don't have many of those people anymore because they end up becoming comic fans, and now I don't have anybody to show my stuff to.
I was just about to say, that's the other thing too about when somebody says they're not into comics at a Comic-Con, there's tons of people that aren't into comics that go to conventions because of other stuff, cosplay, other people that are showing up, celebrities, etc. But one of the big things, Greg knows this, I'm going through slowly, but I'm going through a book called The Business of Independent Comic Book Publishing, and it's by Gamal Hennessy, and
I was saying his last name.
Oh, Hennessy. And he basically he worked as an entertainment lawyer for companies like Marvel and Image and a few other ones like that, and then he also created his own novels and eventually comics. And one of the things that he talks about in there, and I think indie creators don't think about, is that there's comic book fans, but these people like Marvel and DC or Select Image, Select IDW comics, right? That's what they like. To get someone that already has a preference for a medium of here, it's kind of even in the anime space, if you're somebody who only likes Dragon Ball Z, trying to get them to like something else, they might like it because they like the medium, but very often this just might be their thing that they like. But if it's somebody getting introduced to the medium, or somebody who's a fan of the genre, regardless of the medium, because a lot of people, I would say that over 60, maybe even over 70% of non-comic book readers assume that all comic books are superhero comic books.
Sure. Yeah.
See, that's what I use when they say they don't like comics. I was like, good, I got just the book for you. And because this isn't a comic book, and I'll show them Green Zone because there are no superheroes, there's no capes, there's no tights. It's just a bunch of weird looking people trying to earn citizenship. And, you know, it's a totally different story, and that gets them to stop and listen for a second because it's not what they think it is. But you're right, they assume it's all capes and tights.
We don't have capes or tights. We have hoodies and jeans. So.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. It's like if you can get somebody who's a horror fan to go, wow, I love horror. Oh, you have an anthology, you have a comic, you have a graphic novel of horror. Like that's cool. I didn't even know they made that. I love the genre. Like think about it. If you're a fan of a band, you buy T-shirts. That's artwork, but it's not music. So you're willing to like buy other forms of art from a medium in which you enjoy the genre. So if you like metal and the shirt looks metal and you're like, yeah, that's awesome, I want that. It's the same with comics. It's just another form of merchandise. And I think that if people look at it that way, meaning as the creators, it's much easier to sell and pitch your stuff that way. So like you can now sell to all horror fans. And let's say you are just superhero. We have three superhero comics. 4 superhero comics now. But all of them have a subgenre. Like one of them is very crime noir style. One of them is like fantasy magic style. One of them is like dark horror fantasy style. And another one is like martial arts street fighting style. Right. So by having this breakdown, you don't just pitch it even on the superhero stuff because we talked about this on another podcast. Like, was Batman a superhero comic before supervillains or superheroes were introduced? I don't think so. I think it was a crime comic. It was called Detective Comics, right? He became a superhero in a world of superheroes. He's just a guy with money that goes around stopping crime. Why does that make him a superhero? You know what I mean? It's just the fact that he also fights supervillains and is friends with superheroes. So even in that concept, I think that people who make superhero comics need to learn to like break away from that one genre, not to not make the comic, but realize that you have other things about it that are interesting, and that's
make it more interesting than just that. Like make a heist movie, you know, in that world, and that could be really cool. Or you know, all kinds of different story ideas that you could take other than I need to stop you from destroying the world, or I need to stop you from robbing a bank, or I need to save the girl that fell off the building. Like there's more stuff you can do in there that makes it more interesting.
Well, even the latest Batman with Robert Pattinson was more detective-y, more crime-solvy than it was superhero for sure.
Yeah. But he was a terrible detective. He's like, what's a rodent with wings? I don't understand.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying it was a breath of fresh air to have the.
I agree. Like I actually don't think the movie was as good as people say it was, but I like the attempt at a newer version of it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like exactly.
Like I like the Dark Knight series better. I think it was better. I think the Batman from Batman versus Superman, the character is a very cool character, but then the universe they messed up, right? Like,
that Batman was awesome. But
yeah, it's so funny because it's like we don't want just another Batman movie. No, I want that Batman movie. I want to see that guy going around kicking ass. Like he got freaking huge for that. But yeah, exactly. Like adding or emphasizing the other stuff that's not the superhero stuff can make the story so much more interesting. Like if you think about it, like is Harry Potter a superhero because he has magic? Like no, like we don't look at it that way. It's looked at as fantasy. But he is stopping a super villain. Like it's how much you emphasize the genre that makes it relevant. So I think that like even in our series Inc., like he's probably considered a superhero, but in all reality, his story is leading to him basically facing a wizard from another dimension. Like that's really what it is. Greg knows. Like it's leading to something that's not really superhero-esque. But it just, if you look at it from that lens, it'll feel that way. And not only that, if you as the writer look at it through that lens, you'll probably write it that way. So it's like, I love being able to work in the other genres, bring new fans who never thought they would read comics into the space and then build that community so that like comics right now are selling more than ever, but a lot of them are in the manga space, right? So it's like, how do we, and it's because they're better at storytelling than a lot of the active large comic book companies. And it's like, if indie comics can do that too, because most manga is not superhero, even though again, they're still super and they're still heroes. So like, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you end up with a teenager getting powers and doing amazing things if they're just not putting on a spandex suit and, worrying about paying Aunt May's bills. But it's basically the same story, just in a different place.
Sweet. Well, we're at the hour right now. I think that was a pretty good closing out. Where can people? Let's see. We'll go this way. Where can people find you, Mr. Fish?
Go Mr. Fish will take you to my latest project, which right now is late pledges for Alice Lost in Wonderland issue 2, which I might pick up from the printer in the morning before I leave town, or I'll get it Monday, and it's going to be shipping out pretty soon. And then that will take you to the next campaign, which will be the next issue of Alice, and you can sign up for the pre-launch page there. And I'm Mr. Fish Comics on all the social medias.
If someone's going to reach out to you and chat with you, what's the preferred, like, what's the platform you open every day and you're like, I'll talk to my best fan, which platform is that?
I do most of my communication with clients and stuff over like Facebook Messenger, because like I'm just connected with everybody on there. But yeah, I'm opening TikTok and Facebook every day. So, one of those two is a good place to get me.
Very cool. And Frank, what about you?
Yeah, pigmacast.com. That's got links to absolutely everything there. My main social medias are going to be Facebook and Instagram at W Frank Walk. And if you can't find me on there, just Google W Frank Walk. I'll come up.
Just Google it.
Google it. Just Google it.
Greg, close us out.
Well, thanks for coming. And yeah, just has to be awkward when we end this every single time.
Bye, world.